A man traveling long distance on business lost his wallet because he drank a lot last night. He had no cash in his pocket. What would you do?
I would cry.
That's the first thing he did. But next thing he did was calling his wife.
Welcome everybody to the 5th episode of Digital Divide. My name is Grace and I'm joined by Professor Kim.
Hello.
Hello. So I was hoping to start this episode with something a little bit normal.
Mm-hmm.
In South Korea, it's generally Lunar New Year around this time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a kid, you bow to your parents and grandparents,
Right.
and they'll hand over a stack of crisp bills.
Right.
But now, your phone buzzes and you get a payment.
Right. I mean, it takes just a couple of seconds, right, on Kakao Pay.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same here in the US. You have Apple Pay, Venmo, Zelle. And, you know, if you want to split the check, if you want to send birthday money, you just have to tap your phone. It's that simple. So cashless is normal. So I guess my question is, what is it like on the other side of the DMZ? Do they even have like cashless mobile payments?
Not exactly what most people would imagine, but they do have some kind of mobile-enabled money.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't begin with like fintech startups, but it began with necessities at the market.
So this is the other side of the mobile divide.
Right.
In episode 4, Phones on Wheels, we talked about Servicha, which are these semi-private transport vehicles that created a logistics revolution. And the phones kept the drivers and merchants connected.
Right, and the goods moved faster than before thanks to this new Servicha system and new division of labor.
So this raises the obvious question, if goods move, how does the money move? Because you can't have this logistics revolution without a payment system.
And the Servicha people who are involved in this whole business, they worked hard for money, right? And you can't have a functioning distribution network without any functioning payment network.
If a trader sends a shipment from Pyongyang to Chongjin using Servicha, how does the money get from point A to point B?
Pyongyang from like near the west coast to Chongjin near east coast is a very long distance travel. Before we discuss how they move money between Pyongyang and Chongjin, I think you need to understand that North Korea is a country where the official banking system is mostly distrusted by people, especially after the so-called currency reform in 2009, when people's savings were basically wiped out. North Korea's financial institutions are very weak.
What emerged from that era?
So they came up with this idea of informal broker network.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Can you give us an example?
So let's say trader A in Pyongyang wants to send $500 to his business partner, supplier B, in Chongjin, East Coast. So the first thing he can do is, instead of sending cash, which is really slow and risky, trader A gives money to his local money transfer broker, donju, money master in Korean. And this donju broker in Pyongyang make a call to his partner in Chongjin, who is also a broker. And the broker pays the supplier B locally.
The money doesn't travel, it's the message.
Right, and the settlement between the brokers, that can be done between them later on through their own clearing system.
And so trader A and trader B can confirm the payment over their phones.
Right, it just takes a couple of minutes to verify the money transfer.
That must be very huge for the markets.
Sure, and it changed everything.
Episode 4 was about goods in motion, and this episode 5, will be about money in motion.
Right, and the logistics revolution needed a financial revolution, and that's where phones become something more than communication devices.
So now we get to the part that always surprises everybody. Phone credit itself becomes money.
I think this is one of the most creative adaptations that North Korean people made in their market activities. And North Koreans, they call this phone money, 전화돈.
Can you walk us through it?
So North Koreans, their cell phones are prepaid, and you load talk time on your cell phone, and you can transfer the talk time to another subscriber. And the recipient, when they receive the talk time from another subscriber, they can cash it out, treat this talk time as currency.
But wait, how does minutes turn into cash?
So here's how it works. Let's say I live in Pyongyang and need to send money to Grace living in Cheongjin. I go to a local post office in Pyongyang and top up Grace's phone number. And Grace receives this talk time, added talk time from me. And she goes to the local post office in Cheongjin and cash it out. And the post office deducts 1 or 2% fee.
The post office becomes a wire transfer center.
Right, and importantly, these transactions are often settled in foreign currency like US dollars or Chinese yuan, which makes this system viable as a money transfer mechanism.
That sounds remarkable. I'm assuming this is a very popular system in North Korea.
Not really, because you can easily expect long lines at the post office. So people are a little bit concerned about potential scrutiny by the government officials at the post office once they detect that you're sending huge amount of money to somebody else. Why, how you got this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of questions you don't want to, be asked. So what they choose is instead of visiting local post office, they do something else.
Let me guess, it's a shortcut.
Exactly, a secondary market for airtime or talk time. So imagine you have 100 minutes loaded on your cell phone, but you don't want to go to a service center. Again, long lines are expected, and maybe security people will be there. Instead, you go to the 장마당. You have a professional airtime trader doing business at 장마당.
But it's unofficial.
They don't seem to care. Actually, at 장마당, the airtime traders even hang signs that literally says, "We buy and sell airtime."
So basically, they're currency exchange dealers, but for talk time.
Right, and the prices fluctuate. It's basically market activities. So when the demand is high, imagine what would happen. The resale price goes up.
Basic economics.
Right.
So it's like a mini foreign exchange market.
Right, just built on SIM cards instead of banking platforms.
Can you give me a real-life example where this would matter to a North Korean person?
I heard about this very interesting story from my de facto interviewee. Let's say a man traveling long distance on business lost his wallet because he drank a lot last night. Unfortunately, he had no cash in his pocket. What would you do? He's stuck away from his home.
I would cry.
Right. That's the first thing he did. But next thing he did was calling his wife on cell phone. And she transfers her talk time to his husband with this phone credit, buys a bus ticket, pays for meals at a restaurant.
So it sounds a lot like Apple Pay, but it isn't this big payment network. It's just SIM cards and a lot of trust.
Exactly. So you just need to press a code to transfer your talk time to another subscriber. And you just need to enter the recipient's number, and the talk time can be converted into cash, virtual cash at the market. So primitive in interface, sophisticated in function.
If vendors are willing to take these minutes for actual money, I'm assuming it's not going to be used just for emergency use. It will also be used for personal use.
Right. You just hit the nail on the head.
So let's picture a 장마당. So a woman wants to buy a smuggled cosmetic, let's say a lipstick, but she doesn't have the money on her. What does she do?
You can easily imagine, based on what we have discussed, right? She transfers her talk time to the vendor. Merchants at 장마당 even encourage customers who are short on cash to pay with phone credit. So some people admit that they made kind of an impulse purchase in this way, transferring minutes for cosmetics, small food items, or even restaurant meals.
The details matter because it's not just for emergency use. It's normal consumer behavior. Like, for example, in Seoul, if you want to buy a lipstick, you just tap your phone. In Chongqing, if you want to do the same thing, buy a lipstick, you just have to send over your minutes. That's, the mobile divide.
Right.
Let's talk about something a little bit heavier, which is military service.
Sounds heavy.
Yes, very heavy, especially if you're a male. But in the South, soldiers used to not be able to use their phones at all.
For security reasons. And as you know, it's kind of a mandatory military service for young men around, I think it's less than 2 years now.
I think it was 2019. They lifted that restriction and they can use their phones after they've done their daily duties. But obviously there's going to be a lot of restrictions, like restrictions on certain apps, because I know gambling is a very specific concern. But now they can call homes. What is it like for North Korean soldiers?
In North Korea, young men serve about 10 years. Can you imagine that?
That's a lot.
In South Korea, less than 2 years. North Korea, about 10 years. And they are banned from having cell phones.
That must be very frustrating for the parents.
Sure, parents they really want to get connected with their sons, right? Especially when they're away from home for 10 years, and they really want to make a call to their sons, not because they want to say hello. I mean, sometimes they do, but mostly they want to make sure their sons are not starving.
Can't the government feed the men?
They should, but they cannot because North Korea face chronic food shortages, and each military unit they're supposed to feed their soldiers, but they don't have adequate food.
Have the men come up for any solutions for this?
Again, as you can easily imagine, this is where the airtime comes in. The parents transfer talk time to the merchants nearby the military bases, and the merchants provide foods to their sons, not for a full market value, because they want to make a profit here. But anyway, this is a very convenient way to make sure their sons are getting some food at least.
That means the soldier visits the merchant.
If this sounds too inconvenient, you can think about alternative, meaning sending the talk time to your son's superior officer. Again, the superior officer, after receiving this talk time, he provides food to the son. Again, not at the full market value, because this officer also wants to make profit here.
Talk time can be used as not only a leverage, but also as a quiet bribe.
Right.
So this all sounds incredibly flexible. Markets build a secondary airtime economy, while travelers survive on time credit, and parents can send that credit to sons to feed them. Doesn't the government find out about this?
They did. They absolutely noticed this.
And they weren't thrilled?
So in 2020, they began restricting phone money transfers. It was in the middle of COVID. I don't know whether it was it had something to do with COVID, but suddenly the government decided to impose some constraints on airtime transfers. So there were limits on how much people can send, and limits on how frequently transfer they can make. Sometimes even temporary suspensions.
What was the concern?
I think it was about control. This talk time transfer service that was actually introduced by the government, but they didn't intend to make this service widely used by people as an alternative to currency. Right, that was not the government's intention, but people are actively using this kind of alternative currency, and the government started to worry that people were hoarding minutes, especially those minute traders at Changmadang, at fluctuating exchange rates. That creates informal financial markets outside state supervision. That really creates some big concern for the state.
So it wasn't just about telecom policy control, it was also about monetary control, because this disrupts the entire secondary system.
Yeah, it did. And imagine being a minute trader at Changmadang. You have been hoarding a huge amount of minutes so that you can sell them for profit, right? But suddenly, you're not allowed to, send us talk time beyond a certain amount.
I'd be very angry.
Right. That means the government basically wiped out your savings.
Just like as an overview, so I understand everything. First, the markets turned minutes into money, and then the secondary exchange system emerges. But then the government comes in and starts putting restrictions on transfers. Wouldn't the government try to take advantage of this system if it was so popular among the people already?
They did. So that's where Ullim comes in.
So what is Ullim?
The government developed this app. It allows card-to-card transfers, and you can even do balance checks, electronic shop payments, and even this integrates phone credit transfers into a formal system.
So instead of banning the system, they embraced it.
Right. People were already moving, value digitally, and the government just noticed that and tried to take advantage of that for their control, financial control.
Is this modernization or supervision?
I think it's both. So Ullim connects to state-issued debit cards. They don't have credit cards, so only debit cards. And Ullim encourages the domestic currency usage because you're allowed to move your money, funds through the system in local currency, not the US dollar or Chinese yuan. And this also creates a visibility over transactions. So government can monitor, and whenever they want, they can impose any restrictions they needed.
The mobile divide really isn't about if digital or mobile payments exist, it's about who controls it. So in South Korea as whole, it's fintech companies that expand consumer choice, while in Pyongyang, North Korea, it's digital tools that expand visibility.
Right.
Let's go back to where we started. In South Korea, parents send money to their kids for Lunar New Year. Soldiers scroll on their phones at night. QR codes blink in cafes. In North Korea, parents send minutes to merchants near military bases. Market traders buy and sell prepaid credit, and post offices quietly function as wire transfer posts.
Right. Both Koreas are mobile, but one system reflects kind of abundance and institutional integration, and the other reflects kind of adaptation under constraint.
Same technology, different political system, different stakes. That's the digital divide.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for the 5th episode of Digital Divide. Feel free to follow us on all socials, and please leave a comment if you have any questions. We'll see you next month.
Digital Divide is made possible by the Uni Korea Foundation and the George Washington University Institute for Korean Studies.